Right. Okay. My name's Theo Blackwell. I'm the Chief Digital Officer for London. I was appointed by the Mayor, Sadiq Khan, about 18 months ago to do three things. One, to bring strategic alignment to the things that the Greater London Authority does. We've got 7 statutory strategies covering transport and housing and the environment. These are the things that Parliament has devolved essentially to London to do, and how we talk about smart and digital and data before wasn't done in a consistent form, especially around how our major lever, which is beyond spending money, which is planning. And so how we bring consistency to our strategy was something that the Mayor was very, very keen on. Secondly, how do we mobilise all of the assets of the city, the great technology sector, the data that's held by various institutions, the talent and people that we have for further civic benefit? We're a great believer that the massive explosion and the data revolution and the great commercial success that has happened and growth of the technology firms that Rick outlined in these platforms, this is all part of this huge revolution which has brought significant benefits and also challenges, but data should also be harnessed for civic benefit. And it's very clear that cities have a role in this as the home of technology companies, not as lawmakers, because that's what happens in Westminster, but we've got a different governance role and a different kind of relationship with technology companies. And thirdly, how we open up our public services to even greater innovation. And one of the challenges facing London is our federated nature, which slightly, although London is an outlier in the kind of Geoffrey West model of how cities are more productive the bigger they are, I believe that London can be even more productive for its citizens if we learn to collaborate better between our 32 boroughs, our 50 NHS trusts, our major universities, and the tech sector that's grown over the last 15 years. We can do even more. And an example that I always give, because of course smart technology has come into people's lives over the last decade, is the Oyster card, which is regularly in use, accepted by citizens, an innovation by a public sector organisation that serves all of London. And the Oyster card, then 50% of you statistically will have come here not by the Oyster card, but if you travelled by tube, by contactless payment. And contactless payment, the next evolution in online payment system, is a smart technology that has been done at scale by an innovative organisation benefiting the 9 million people in London and those who live and work and visit here. So I think there can be tremendous practical benefits, but I think too often we talk about smart cities and this kind of like Hunger Games panopticon comes to mind, which is not really useful or helpful for our discussion. Undoubtedly in some areas of the world, in new cities that are being created, certain types of technologies are being put in place, but that doesn't mean necessarily all conversations about smart technology will necessarily lead to this science fiction road or down the science fiction path at all. Our main concern in London actually is not a sort of surveillance capital, even if we wanted to create one. I doubt whether it would be feasible. It's actually to deal with the rising population of our capital, which can go up at a high point by another 2 million people, 3 million people over the next 20 or 30 years. How public services cope with this rise in population, how we build more density in the city, how we plan the city better, how we build more schools, how we accommodate more people, is the driving force behind our city government, and technology and data have a massive role to play in it. And so I've created a framework which is really phase 1 of our smart city thinking about how we collectively can move together to build better digital capability and be more open to innovation in the city. And there are 5 themes to this, of which I'll focus on one today. 1, we'll champion design from City Hall. We'll do that through a range of initiatives, but be a champion of user design services, which we've talked about before. Secondly, data, I'll come back to that. Thirdly, using our assets and infrastructure and understanding what we have in order to build a much better connected city, including using the tube network and the hundreds of thousands of lampposts we have in the city to effectively retrofit the city and make the city more connected. The tube is an asset that we can put fibre down, and public buildings around tube stations can be connected to that fibre network in order to make London more investable for connectivity firms, lower price for consumers, and deal with the massive data needs that the city has. It's fundamental that we invest in digital leadership and skills, not just because morally because we are a diverse city and the technology sector is by no means diverse, but our public services also need those digital skills to be open to innovation. And fifthly, we need to create new institutions for citywide collaboration, beyond shared service and joint procurement arrangements, new, more flexible ways of people who want to work together, to seize the benefits of scale that are open to some institutions like TfL, but are not open to some boroughs, even though 32 of them face pretty much all of the same problems. And this also, our collaborative facility, means if we build that, we will be able to talk to people who are turning the dial on a problem faced by citizens somewhere else in the world, and find allies like we've found in European cities, which we're working with at the moment. Now, I wanted to start by just giving you I wanted to talk today about starting with a bit of history about why London is seen as a pretty smart city already, and that comes from our work in data. Transport for London's unified API has currently about, I think, over 40 data feeds, which have provided over 600 apps typically used by Londoners every single day. Over half of Londoners every single day use an app from TfL's data. The most famous of which, of course, is City Mapper, which comes directly from TfL's data, open data. But behind that, we also have London's Data Store, which has grown from its inception in 2010 and through various iterations to where it is today. Over 800 data sets freely published and available for Londoners, for the research community, for academics, for businesses. Currently, this is how they are used by London boroughs to plan their services better, through private companies, voluntary sectors, academics, other is individual citizens looking for data. The transparency agenda that was started in 2010 has actually evolved further to very, very significant use cases and has marked London out as a leading city promoting open data. Other cities, I think, be fair to say, have probably overtaken London on open data, but London was the first city to say it is important for us to publish data openly, and there is a value to do it, which is more than just a financial value. It is something that we're deeply committed to and actually forms part of our narrative as we move towards Brexit and other challenges, that openness is a fundamental value of this city. But the future, of course, with data will be beyond open data. To get true value, you need to have other data, which includes a discussion around how we use people's private data, commercial data, data from civil society, and other sources. And an example, not a new one, but just an example of something that really works, is our Schools Atlas, which has been around since 2014. This is something that's freely available to the public and combines pupil data information that we were able to get from the Department of Education and other open data sets that we combine together so that parents and people looking for schools in their area can see the heat map of where which kids from which areas go to that school, calculate walking distances to that school, or layer on top of it things like bus routes, see the school reports, opening up choice and greater information by combining data sets, both public and private, for civic benefit. Again, it doesn't take a huge step in technology to do this, but what it takes is accurate, shareable data and data gleaned from other sources such as Whitehall. We're working on the infrastructure mapping project, which brings together all of the construction activities in this city through the sharing of private data sources from utility companies and developers into one map, which shows all of the development, so that developments can be coordinated, saving costs for the construction industry and developers in not digging things up multiple times, and also avoiding digging things up multiple times and blocking our roads for commuters. In the future, we'd want to see the next generation of utility companies, such as connectivity providers, who we deem pretty much a utility these days, to add to that information so we can get a more complete picture. Again, this doesn't happen because there's some new amazing smart technology. It comes through trust and data sharing arrangements with the players in London, brokered by City Hall. In the future, I don't think London will have a big smart city platform or deep data lake where all of that information that would feed the Hunger Games people at the beginning, that won't exist. I don't think that's practicable in a city so federated as London, nor I think in the UK, just in the nature of central and local relations. That's not where we're heading. But where we're heading is something that I think is far more interesting, which is a federation of data between all of the important players. That means City Hall becomes a data standard setter. It becomes a hoster of information, the creator of a register of information from other data sources coming together, so that we can have a really rich, deep look at what's going on in our society. And we started off by the City Data Analytics Programme, which the Mayor announced funding for in June, where we're working really closely with the London Fire Brigade and the universities on creating those data sharing agreements and arrangements and culture, and skilling up data analysts in boroughs, so we together can be greater than the sum of our parts, which is one of the great challenges London's always faced. So the future, not a data lake, but a federated network of data championed and run by City Hall and our partners. Another great challenge for us in the future, and I think a discussion with citizens, is mobile phone data. Because of course we will be able to gain great insights into how people move around our city as it grows through the technology they have on themselves. And I think, in a sense, some of the big challenges and debates that need to be had about data are obviously clearly being waged in terms of Google and Facebook, but actually in terms of the practicalities of a city, what is our relationship with mobile phone companies? As 5G rolls out, 5G will need small cells, about 300,000 of them in London. Those will, the biggest owner collectively of things you will put a small cell on will be the state. It will be hospital buildings and schools and lampposts and other bits of street furniture. That creates a really interesting dynamic between the public sector and the owners of those public assets and mobile phone companies, not just in terms of income generation, which no doubt will be part of this, but also in terms of, can we access that data in order for us to understand more about our citizens and how they move about? Not about individuals, but about patterns and how people move about. And so mobile data and the discussion about mobile is really important, which is why the Mayor has started to lead a conversation on how we use data and what the relationship between citizens and their data is. And here's an example of how, if we did a normal consultation on data during the Smart London Thinking listening exercise, I think we would probably be in danger of just having the debate between the extremes, the sort of technology enthusiasts on the one hand, no barriers, and the privacy, those concerned with privacy on the other. We needed to find a way to cut through to Londoners so we could get a sense of where people were about sharing their data, what they felt about sensors. So we actually used their own data to stimulate a conversation with Londoners about data. So we scraped oyster data from Transport for London, and so if you entered, this is still live, but if you entered the tube station where you started your journey and the tube station where you ended your journey, the specific journey, it would tell you how many people took that journey every single day. So just kind of like a cool bit of information from your data. But then it took you through to a discussion about data and civic uses. And it gave us some really interesting insights at a time when people were really debating data. Inadvertently, we did this at the same time as Cambridge Analytica. And it showed us that by and large, if you told people what their data was going to be used for, they were pretty cool with it. And I think that's a real message, both to the public sector and the private sector. And obviously you've got sort of caveats around, personal medical information, whatever, which is slightly outside the scope of this particular discussion. But if you're looking at city and urban sensors and the kind of smart technologies that you'd use in a city, I think the average Londoner will take a pragmatic view about it if you do the things necessary to convince them that you're acting responsibly, which is kind of like common sense. And I think we should be bolder as policymakers about the use of data, because I go back to my initial point, it just shouldn't be for technology companies to sit there and exploit and take value from data and create business models. It should be for cities as well, and we need to be in the game, because the only way we're going to improve public services, provide more opportunities for civic-facing innovation, is through mobilising the data we have. And after all, what is city government historically than a massive agglomeration of people's data? That's kind of what it has been created to do. And if we've got the ability to use it for civic benefit, then we should really try and do that. So finally, you can follow what we're doing on data and the 4 other areas on our report card. Sort of slightly controversially, about a year ago for City Hall, I put everything I was doing up on Trello. But like off-the-shelf project management tool, and that just basically updates what we're doing. If we're changing something, you can see why we've changed it, why we've stopped something. Because I think it's really important with technology that it's not behind closed doors, and particularly for city government, that we show people what we do, why we're doing it, how we're changing, and how you can get involved. So I look forward to the conversation following. Thank you.